The struggles were wearing a million hats. The struggles were having customers fall through the cracks.
When did you start to feel like, okay, I am doing this?
You can die on the vine with this thing, or you take this shift and jump. Like, let's go, dude. You're risking nothing to start something huge.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited today to be introducing you to Shaun Shubert. Shaun is a professional fighter, trainer, and resilience coach with ADHD after a career including being the first Northeast American small glove Muay Thai champion. Shaun retired from fighting and now helps CEOs and entrepreneurs overcome self-doubt through his Iron Man method. He also owns Red Seal Martial Arts Company, which teaches Muay Thai. So lots going on. You're coming from us today from your space. So welcome, Shaun.
Thank you, Sky, for having me. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, me too. So I'm going to ask you about the ADHD side first. When did you find out that you had ADHD?
Well, I am an 80s baby. Probably 86 I was born. Not probably, definitely 86 I was born. So I'd say about kindergarten, preschool, I was doing group activities, fidgeting in my seat. Teachers are taking my seat away because, they're doing the old iron fist kind of teaching methods where the drug companies were still kind of like under wraps. It was very like a small percentage of people that were getting prescribed medicine and that kind of thing. It was just discipline, actions, that I was getting.
So did you know that you had ADHD at that point, or was it more of a question mark?
It was a question at first, and then it got into the removing my seats, the class clowning, the no homework because I would wait till the last minute, that kind of stuff. And probably about 10, 11 years old, I think in the United States, it was around the time where the UK and the States were allowing the now pharmaceutical companies to start advertising and pushing that kind of new thing that we've got going on with people getting all medded up and all that kind of thing. But we went down and we did some just tests at Children's Hospital or some kind of hospital. It was, again, I was very, very young, but we got in there. We did tests because I had a lot of nervous tics that I was getting scowled for, getting the fingers for. And we said that I definitely had attention disorders. They said that I definitely had some kind of mild form of Tourette's, and they suggested all kind of different.
Yeah, what was that like for you? Because I imagine that would have been quite tough growing up with kind of a hostile school environment, basically.
Yeah, the schooling was okay because I got a little bit of special attention once it started to be kind of problematic, where they'd split kids out of class and that kind of nonsense. But it was still the style of teaching, the kind of Chronos mindset where they're schooling kids from age 4, 5, 6 years old to then get into this hourly type of mindset where they're in this current state, and it's a lot of stress. The expectations are very high. The workload is designed for kids that have a good attention span, that are able to sit down and read and write without kind of these little tools that people like you and I start to create for ourselves to optimize our workflow. We get into these places where we start to dilate what we're doing and work within the constraints or work around the constraints, and almost set up our habits and set up our environments to be less lagging for us, where we start to understand ourselves a little bit better. And then we start to build in these kind of tools where I know, I'm never going to do a homework assignment where they've given me a week to do the homework. I'm always going to wait till the very last Friday night.
Till you get that dopamine spike right at the end. And I will say, I don't relate to all of this, but I do relate to some of the being pulled out of class stuff, because I didn't struggle with ADHD so much, although sort of secretly, but dyscalculia. So
And that's
math,
where
I
you
was
mix up
terrible.
with numbers, right? You switch the spots.
Yeah. So I was like stuck in whatever the lowest class
Yeah.
was for that.
Yeah, so that's what confuses me, and people are just like, "How do you mix up the I and the E? How are you reading these things backwards?" And having both of those at the same time makes it, again, because of the
Yeah.
academic side, very, very terrible for people like you and I.
Yeah.
When I was in about 10th grade, I had some more psychological issues on top of the compounding ADD.
Mhm.
Landed
Yeah.
me a lot of therapy, landed me a
Mhm.
vacation stay at the psych hospital for a bit of time. And the
Mm.
tools that I learned there, similar to lots of other people that have done rehab, recovery, therapy, they learn these things so that they can alleviate all these pressures and stresses that are, in their day to day.
Mhm.
They self,
Mhm.
some of them are actually daunting to them, but
Mhm.
essentially it gives you these, again, mental resilience tools at a youth's age, unaware of the power I was getting. But then when
Mhm.
I started doing more entrepreneurial work, when I stopped professionally fighting and started doing more coaching hands on, leaned really into getting into entrepreneur groups, hired high level coaches, high level marketing
Mhm.
coaches, sat
Yeah.
and figured my
Yeah.
time out, right?
Yeah. But I want to kind of go in because I want to bring people on this journey. So let's say you're in school, right?
Yes.
What happened when you graduated school? Like where were you at? Obviously school had been really tough. There'd been lots going on. Was it like
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to do? Did you want to be a fighter?
I almost missed graduation. The vacation to the hospital in 10th grade actually landed me in a whole new school system. I went from
Mhm.
the kind of treachery of that very academic, we're going to send you to college style of academia, and
Mhm.
went to
Yeah.
a public regional school that they have here in the States. And they teach trades where you can learn how to cook or build houses, cabinetry. You can learn how to do plumbing or welding, those kind of more blue collar jobs. So I learned how to cook. My
Mhm.
mother was the happiest day of her life. She thought I'd never make it out of high school. I was going to be a 10-year high school student.
And now you're making food for her, hopefully.
So, yeah, I started cooking. I ran that for a career right out of high school. It was
Mhm.
it was almost my first rebirth
Mhm.
as a person, getting out of the hospital, having all these new skills that they were teaching me, and then being able to kind of shed skin, leave that old stuff behind, went to a new environment,
Mhm.
school, and then I was excelling because it was half the time spent in classrooms. Everybody else was in the same boat as me, where it was a bunch of people that were, most of us had some kind of learning issues where it was the right choice for us to go to this type of learning environment. So I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to
Yeah,
have.
definitely. Yeah, you find those group of people that you connect with and it makes you feel not alone.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's super huge. The addiction community, the recovery community, all of the people that are in these high level environments, the community is the biggest thing. The
Yeah.
having somebody to lean on or talk to or say, "Hey man, like, I was thinking about a drink. Hey, I drove by a bar and I thought about this," right? Like that's the same power as
Mhm.
like, getting stuff off your mind, having that person to talk to, like, "Hey, dude, I just feel like I've been in warp speed for the last 3 days. I know I've been like killing it at the office and killing it at the gym, but I can't remember anything I did in the last week. Like it's all just
Mhm. Mhm.
blur."
Yeah. Hey, you listening to this podcast. If you like what we do and you want to hear more of it, there is one way to make sure that that happens. Please go ahead, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. We have been told 5-star reviews can help us to get seen by more people, which means more people are going to learn about ADHD strategies.
Just press the button. Just give us a 5-star review.
And so, where did fighting come in for you?
Fighting was part of my DNA, and it's actually part of everybody's DNA. It's something that I teach when I teach people that are nervous to get in the ring. when they are nervous to show up to training just to practice and start moving around and start playing the game with each other and sparring and taking some lumps and giving some back. There's a lot of psychology that goes with that. Built into my DNA, though, I played hockey, football. I played all kinds of other like intramural school sports because it was, again, anything to keep this kid busy, right? Like he's doing everything he's not supposed to do, like get him in every type of activity. And between the hockey, the football, and the martial arts, by the time I was a teenager, it just hit me where I was like, had a chip on my shoulder because of a broken home situation. I was kind of all fueled up with all this extra energy from being kind of restless, anyways. And then something to do. And at that time in my life, I was still in that academic school where I'm sitting for 8 hours, 6 hours a day, or how long you're there for. And it was something that I needed, and it's just in me, the physical makeup, the desire to be physical, to work out, to spar. I'll do weeks at a time where I just smash the bag and fight with other guys, and I don't lift weights, I don't go jogging because it's just so.
Yeah. So when did that become an actual competition? Because you became the first Northeast American small glove Muay Thai champion. So what was the shift for you? Was it very natural? Did somebody tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I think you're going to be a fit for this?
Nope, more trouble for me. The story is that I was with this martial arts school again from 10 till 13, 14. Then I'm, starting to compete. But in the States, the mainstream of combat sports was still yet to be invented. So a lot of people were doing traditional classical karate, that kind of martial arts thing, that type of stuff. And it really stemmed from kind of the birth of that. And then I was still cooking, just doing it as a hobby through my 20s, decided, again, I'm out of school. I'm done with the kind of school sports and that type of activity. And then I was in trouble working as a chef, the whole bar nights life, that kind of scene. I got arrested and lost everything. I lost my business. I lost, name it. I lost it. And the guy that was training me in martial arts, he kind of took me under his wing, said, hey, listen, I'm looking to do these things. I need somebody that can run the gym. I'll be the face. He had already a chain of schools. It was going well. It's that the third thing. A year into business together, his own demons had caught up with him. He had, so to speak, secured his own legacy in his mind, taken care of all his loose ends, and he actually committed suicide and left me.
Wow.
In business. He left me as a young person in a new role, in a new business, and it was earth-shattering.
Yeah.
Initially, of course. And after some of the time passed and some of the wounds had healed, it was, again, another shedding the skin because everything else was kind of withering and dying on the vine. And if I was meant to wither and die on the vine like that, I would have stayed complacent. But I went on a retreat to Thailand. It was my first retreat. I'd found a couple of new mentors through just guys that were friendly with my instructor. And they, again, were obviously very empathetic, very comforting because they had also lost a friend, and very plugged into the martial arts community. They took me away, brought me on a Thailand retreat and immersed me in relaxation, put me in that culture, changed my whole mindset. And I came back and virtually like ripped everything apart that was here and reframed it and rebuilt it and started kind of dialing it down these different avenues where I was.
What did you rebuild it to be? Like what, when you say you reframed it?
Muay Thai school that it is now. It was before just the classical martial arts school, and they were doing all kinds of dressing in the uniforms, colored belts, high karate, that kind of thing. And that was, again, dying on the vine type of thing where the sports world, the combat world was coming up. These new mentors in my life gave me
Mhm.
new perspective and
Yeah.
listen, like you can die on the vine with this thing and you'll be back to cooking in no time, or you're already
You can go for it.
like you take this shift and jump, like let's go, dude,
Yeah.
so I changed the colors, I changed the name, I changed the I got rid of all the bad juju, right?
Yeah. So I guess my question then for you, because yeah, it is really tough. Like you come back from this, you're renewed. You are like, okay, we're gonna rip this thing down. We're gonna shift it into what I want it to be. What it has become today. Did you make any changes to the culture as well as part of that conversation?
Everything. Yeah, of course you had to, because it was jaded.
Because it sounds like there might have been a break at some point from the kind of previous experiences you'd had that had led you to getting arrested and dealing with all of that kind of stuff. And then also in this space. So, what was that break for you? Was it a decision? Was it a transition? What did that look like?
Yeah, of course. When I was running the school initially, I was doing a lot of part-time work still as a chef. I would come to my gym and open it up. I would run some things in the morning, and then I would go to be a delivery driver in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I would
Mm-hmm.
come back to prime time and close my gym at night. And then I would go to Boston and work as a security guard in the city and
Mm-hmm.
would be there till 2, 3 in the morning and then back up at
Wow.
the gym. And it was just kind of this vicious cycle where
Mm-hmm.
the fighting gave me this avenue to be able to travel, produce more, get a little bit more out of it than slaving and working all these hour to hour jobs where I said,
Is that
listen,
because you got paid more doing the fighting?
well, no, because it was going to be a better avenue in the long run.
Right.
It was seeing the future vision and saying,
Mm-hmm.
like I just listened to somebody today say all these entrepreneurs that never start say they're risking everything, but they have nothing. You have nothing. You're
Mm-hmm.
risking nothing to start something huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
just developed that mindset where, I would get job offers for, hey, do you want to come down and shovel the snow out? We'll pay you X amount for an hour and, this, that. I said no, because what if somebody calls me and they want to book me for $75 an hour and I get to stay in my gym and
Mm,
perform and just do my thing that I like to do. I don't have to go out in the snow and dress up and then somebody
yeah.
calls me and I can't go because I'm now working for you. Like, when?
Right. So you had to make that decision that like this was the direction,
Yeah.
this was where you were going, and you were going to go for it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And so when did you start to feel, we're gonna get back to the ADHD strategies, I promise, but I just want to get your story first. But like when did you start to feel like, okay, I am doing this? Like I am a fighter, professional fighter. I'm running this gym. Like when did that start to happen and why?
That's a really awesome question. And it's super crazy because I'll say it's honestly probably right before I retired. It's kind
Mhm.
of bittersweet. In this sport, though, it's kind of a pro move, just the same as you would do in business, where you're going to exit at the top. I had just
Mhm.
become the first person in Massachusetts to fight a sanctioned small glove Muay Thai fight. I did it in Plymouth, Massachusetts, which is essentially where everybody thinks the country was founded. And it was a really historic night for Massachusetts for Muay Thai. And the fight went swimmingly. I got a first round knockout. The fans sold out arena, sitting on top of the cage, arms raised. It's
Mhm.
super, super cool feeling. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, because I knew I was retiring, the promoter came in with the microphone and I had already laid my gloves down in the center of the ring, which is typically a sign that you're, hanging the gloves up and that was your last performance. And
Mhm.
this guy hands me a microphone, no script, no preparation, no thought. And I just delivered this super epic speech. It's actually on YouTube. You can search out my
I
last.
think I've found it. Yeah. I think as
Yeah,
part of research with this, I think I found it.
on their feet, like cheering for Plymouth, cheering for the USA, cheering for Muay Thai, cheering for me. And it was like, oh my God, I could do this forever. If I could freeze time, like, oof, that's like such a feeling, man.
Yeah.
It's like choking me up right now. It's like giving me goosebumps. It's like the
Yeah.
cool.
But you'd already decided to retire.
Yeah, I have a 2-year old. He's going to be 3 in September, and I'm actually expecting my second. And my
Oh,
wife was initially a fan, and she was coming to my fights and cheering me on, and being the lady on my arm. And 8 years later, she's my wife, mother of my two
yeah.
kids, and
Yeah.
she's grown to love what we've been able to build, but also because she's grown more fond of me, getting me all battered up, bruised up, bleeding all over
Yeah.
the place. I'm coming out of these fights sometimes with upwards of 50 stitches in my face. I mean, you can see
Mhm.
scars on my face from here. Like,
Mhm.
I got jacked up for what I did, which from my perspective, it's the badges of honor in Muay Thai. But from her
Mhm.
perspective, she's watching her husband, and now my son is watching his dad, and
Yeah.
trying to just alleviate as much drama from his life as I can, so
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
this
Definitely.
is obviously a better move, right? Like I'm safer, I'm doing more productive things instead of working
Mhm.
business. I'm working on the business,
Yeah.
and I'm just able to
Yeah.
expand. And now, like I said, I've got a team of people that I'm able to provide a job for. I'm able to pay money to, and it's really cool.
Yeah. So it's been a huge shift for you. Now you're running a business. You have a team. Like you said, it's like I said, are you running a business? And you're like, well, I own a business. That's the sign of somebody who's really, learned how to delegate, which is amazing. So, I guess my first question for you is knowing what you know about ADHD and having ADHD, do you think, the hardest part about taking on the struggle of running a business and organizing that with ADHD?
Oh my goodness. Once I hired this team after retirement from competing, I joined Dan
Mhm.
Martell's group after reading his book, Buy Back Your Time, and
Mhm.
game changer. I
Mhm.
did it while I was actually on a retreat in Thailand, running it
Mhm.
with my team. I was getting on calls at 2 o'clock in the morning because the time difference is so vast here in New Zealand too. So you
Yeah.
understand what it's like.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Dan Martell is also my mentor, and you get up when you get up to talk to Dan.
Right? So if it's important, you'll do it, and that was it.
Yeah.
That was like the real big thing for me,
Yeah.
So
But what were the struggles? So you mentioned, obviously that was the game changer. But if we would go back to the struggles, like,
yeah, that was my opener to looking back at what I was doing before. I'm mind blown at everything that I was doing. That I'm like, how did this even get to this far? Because I'm looking at it like, Jesus Christ, like there's no way that I would ever have been able to increase my revenue or grow any more than
mhm,
I already am at that current state.
mhm,
And just looking back, no personal assistant, no management of my time or calendar, inbox
mhm,
a mess just off the rip. And then working
mhm,
with my business all the time, thinking, oh, this is
mhm,
saving me so much money and so much confusion and headache. I don't have to train anybody in these things. And
mhm,
learn all this kind of stuff as entrepreneurs on how to
mhm. Oh,
lead
yeah.
a team and be a transformational leader. And that type of leadership has just changed my whole life. So the
Yeah.
struggles were wearing a million hats. The struggles were
Mhm.
having customers fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
These kind of ways for me to come in and run my business while the business is running itself, meaning I would schedule myself private clients back to back with my classes, no breaks, no
Mm.
time for any
Mm,
mindset switching. I'd go from presenting a workshop to presenting a private client to talking to
mm-hmm.
somebody about their kind of psychological issues to trying to make my schedule,
Mm,
events, trying to run events. I had no staff. I
yeah.
had no help. I'm trying to teach kids, adults. It was a mess.
100%, 100%. I'm sure a lot of people who have started running a business can relate to that. Some people are probably like, wait, that's me right now. But, it is a whirlwind. And especially with ADHD, we know from the research, we need that transition time more even than neurotypicals.
The worst thing is that you know what you need to do, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have no idea where 2 hours just went and what were you just doing for the last 2 hours that you were
Yeah.
just staying busy, but you were being completely unproductive. You're just
Mm-hmm.
doing things like cleaning up because the things that are in the corner keep bugging
Mm-hmm.
you and it keeps rolling around in here and you can't
Yeah.
put your computer in type because you want to clean up the mess. Like you need to set up your environment. You need to do
Yeah.
can't tell you how many office spaces I've had since even I just moved my front desk. I don't know, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, maybe not even, but
Mm-hmm.
even today, I was just revamping and rehanging things and just
Mm-hmm.
creating this environment that's like, that's my
Yeah.
vibe. And like Dan says it
Yeah.
all the time, your vibe attacks your tribe. And like that's my vibe, man. So those are the people that
Yeah.
are here. That's who I want to track. That's who I want to work for me.
So then I guess my question becomes like, okay, what are the things, like you said, you're kind of running around like a million different directions. What are the one or two things that you think made the biggest difference to being able to focus? I mean, obviously, getting a coach, having a coach is amazing, but you know, if you wanted to share some of those tips, what are the one or two things that helped you focus and helped you do it consistently? Because those are the two things that really are a struggle with ADHD business owning.
Yeah, for sure. I think that recognizing my time was really easy to do. As somebody that has ADHD, I feel like we're very in tune with ourselves. Like we have a lot of inner dialogue, and that's kind of something that buzzes us off track. Is like we're doing something, then we're like, "Oh, Jimmy,"
Mm-hmm.
um, and then you're like off
Yeah.
to yeah, you're on another track, right? So I think that just being aware of my time, auditing it, and then putting a routine in for myself, building a ritual, so to speak, where I could kind of plug in. Morning
Mm-hmm.
routine was something that worked for me. It was
Mm-hmm.
the easiest slide in. I definitely tried a bunch of stuff. I read James Clear's Atomic Habits, and he talks
Yep.
about habit stacking, which is for
Mm-hmm.
those who are unfamiliar with habit stacking, when you already have a habit that you're doing good, bad, and different, that you attach something that you want to do to it. And if it's a bad habit, maybe you give it as a reward for skipping the bad habit and you do this, you can
Mm-hmm.
replace it, or sometimes you can do it beforehand. Like, I'll
Mm-hmm.
journal and then I'll make my coffee and I'm allowed to have the coffee once I do my
Mm.
there's all these kind of
Interesting.
little hacks for yourself
Yeah.
to play. And again, because of the ADHD, you like to play these little games with yourself, whether it's about numbers or whether it's tracking your points or whatever, these things get kind of caught in your head. So
Yeah.
you're playing this kind of game with myself. I do it with
Mm-hmm.
the journaling. I do it with like Dan's reward system when he talks about the achievement road mapping. I was doing
Mm-hmm.
it with money before I knew about anything. Those little
Yeah.
games are just fun for you to like compete with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
that just kept it lively for me.
No, I love that. I think that's really awesome. And I guess my only question for you then is, I know a lot of people who have businesses will kind of, because I hear this all the time. I talk to business owners with ADHD all the time. They'll be like, that sounds cool. Like, I'm so glad you found a routine, but I couldn't possibly have a routine because my day looks different. Like, what about crises? And this thing happens and that thing happens. What is your response to that kind of question?
I would say after learning about the two time signatures that we talked about before and dilating your time
Mm-hmm.
and the chronos versus cryos time that gets talked about in 10x better than 2x from Ben Hardy.
Can you explain Chronos versus
Yes,
the other one?
Chronos is the time signature that I was speaking about before, talking about how it's designed for factory workers, children in school. There's a very hourly design type of agenda. Your goal setting from your current state. There's a lot of high expectations. There's a lot of busy work to be done. In the Cryos type of time form, it's more of an Einstein's type of time is relevant and time is subjective, and you have the power to produce a lot in a small amount of time. So what we're taught as children is to get into this kind of very high stress, very demanding, high expectation type of mindset. And then entrepreneurs, coaches, people like you and myself, people like Dan Martell, other type of high level athletes, actresses, they gear themselves Cryos type, where it's broken into these phases of creation where you're practicing and creating and building all this stuff, and then you produce something huge and awesome, and you put it out and you spend all your time and energy doing that, and then you need massive recovery, and the times split. Instead of saying, hey, I'm gonna sit down and write for an hour and then do this for an hour and then do that for an hour, which is the Chronos type of mindset, you say, hey, I'm gonna block out 5 hours, and then I use it to be free and creative and dilly-dally and set my room up the way I want it to, and sit and type, and maybe an hour or 2 hours of typing gets done in there, and then afterwards you split off another 5 hours of recovery. You've done more work in those 10 hours than you did in an 8-hour shift where you're putting everything
doing one thing at a time. Yeah. It's the transition time. It's a transition time. And for those of you who want to know how to reduce the amount of time you spend dilly-dallying, you can just Instagram me focus, and I'll send you the step into focus routine for that.
That's great.
But I'll send it to you as well, if you want.
Yeah, send it to me too. I'm going to type it in my chat right here.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it is true. And for those of you who feel like you don't have that time, I guess my recommendation is going, okay, what has to be done in the next 24 hours, or there will be a significant negative consequence. Like, if there is nothing that needs to be done in the next 24 hours that is so important, so urgent that the house is going to burn down, the bill's not going to get paid, then consider using some of that time that you have for this really important ROI shifting stuff. Because like you said, that's the stuff that's going to move you forward and make those changes.
Yeah, it's very critical. And sometimes people need to really step away as a family man, as an entrepreneur, whatever that big role you have in your life is. You need that huge disconnect, whether you're doing it locally or traveling or however you're doing it. But that was the biggest thing for me. Was the first time that I went to Thailand, I let other people run my business, and it gave me this opportunity to recreate and redevelop the whole business in its entirety. The second time that I left my business in charge with other people for 6 weeks this time, again, another revamp, another whole thing about building teams, building this kind of equity in my gym with other people through building a team by having more time to be able to do two things at the same time, be able to travel and still be working and making money in my gyms at home, making aggressive income back there at the same time.
Well, to kind of wrap it up here, I have a couple of questions I like to ask everyone. So, tell me about one business achievement that you're most proud of.
I will say building this team that I currently have, and then we spoke a little bit earlier about me switching over and doing high ticket sales with these retreats. And today was my first big high ticket sales call that was a success. And I'll say that was my biggest achievement thus far.
Awesome. Well, good on you. It's coming. And so on the other side, what is a business failure that embarrasses you, and how did you deal with it?
Oh, well, I will say that my first real business was a restaurant. I actually rented somebody's kitchen. That's where all the madness came from, where I got the bar raided and it was a whole big mess. There was big police involved. My picture was in the paper. If you searched my name, a whole bunch of bad stuff came up about how I was a drug lord and a kingpin. And, this is all like subjective things before court, happened, but no retraction statements, nothing like, hey, we're sorry, we made a mistake, we got the wrong guy, da da da, So that was like really looming. Even when I was doing the martial arts thing, the classical martial arts thing, people are trying to bring their kids in here and do all kinds of stuff. They're searching out the guy they're going to bring their family to, and they're like, this guy's a felon. Like, what is going on here? You had to basically like recreate my whole story. And now if you search there's just my hand raised in the air and all these podcasts and interviews as a professional fighter and all this traveling and bringing teams to Thailand and in Costa Rica and writing books. And I had to really rebuild myself and rise from the ashes type of story.
Yeah, very cool. So that's a huge shift. And, I guess my last question is, if you had an ADHD life motto, what would it be?
That's a really cool question. I actually have never thought about having an ADHD motto, but I am a strong believer that with willpower and mindset and the right environment, you can do whatever you want. So I'd say do the inner work, do the self work, and set yourself up for success, because lots of people are in the same boat as you and are doing the things that you can do.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. I think it's always, the reason I like asking that question is because I think it's always a great insight into how different people think. And I think that's so good. Yeah. Well, awesome, Shaun. Well, thank you for coming along and chatting with me today, sharing your story. I feel like we got through, a lot of very interesting story, and I'm really excited. I think a lot of people are going to find this conversation really interesting and also really inspiring to see what you can do. So thank you so much, Shaun.
Thank you, Scott, for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. Oh, and before we go, tell people, how do they find you? What are you doing next? All that stuff.
Find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle's right here. It's Shaun Shubert. There's an underscore between my names. And I also have an active LinkedIn profile as well. Those are the two best ways to plug in, and we'll get you connected with whatever you found that resonates with you the most.
Awesome. Perfect.
Scott, thank you so much. It was so fun.
No worries. Great to have you on. Thank you for listening, everyone. And a big thank you to Adam for making us sound great and Anastasia for making us look great. We couldn't do it without you.
And if you're looking for any of the references to the papers that we discuss, head on over to our show notes page, because I always bring the receipts.
Plus, if you want to find out more about us or any more deep diving into what we're doing, you can find us on Substack. That's where the community is. That's where we're chatting, and you can see all of the fun and exciting things that we are bringing to the table.
Thanks for being here.